Yeah.
Just dropping in? Oh, God. No!
John. You're always such a goofy character. I honestly thought you were there as comic relief. Up until the last volume, that is. Then I realized something. John, it was there all along. Little hints and clues, little twists in the plot centered around you. And now I think I know the truth. And so, here we are. Here's my theory about John's destiny and his ultimate role in RWBY. Let me back up a little bit and explain what I started to see once I paid more attention to John's development. You see, as a writer, I'm well aware of a pattern that most stories follow, a necessary one, you could say, because it helps the story and its heroes teach the readers, or viewers in this case, some important lessons. It often goes like this. Character leaves the status quo, their normal life. Character arrives in a new, magical, awesome, but scary land. Character meets their mentor and advances through the story, gaining friends, skills, strength, and whatever else the story might entail. The character hits rock bottom, starting from the beginning, only worse. The character rises up from rock bottom to accomplish their ultimate goal. The character returns to their more or less normal life, now improved by the lessons they learned. Now, let's take a look at how John fits into this. The first part talks about the character leaving his normal life. We can see that pretty clearly with John.
Well, I guess the view isn't for everyone.
He even talks about where he came from, and we get an idea that he isn't like everyone else. He's even more normal than some of the other people in his family.
My father, my grandfather, and his father before him were all warriors. They were all heroes.
So clearly, where he comes from is nothing like Beacon Academy. Moving on, we get to the character arriving in a strange land. This can be magical, technologically advanced, or in John's case, it's a little of both. But this land usually has some sort of danger or threat, usually sourced from the villain or natural enemy. Again, in the case of John, it's a little of both. Next, hero meets their mentor and learns about this strange new world. Now I think John's mentor is fairly evident. As team captain, we know John has gone through a lot with Team Juniper and has learned a lot from Pyrrha, so that's another check on the list. But finally, we come to this point. Character hits rock bottom. No hope. Everything is lost, or is it? And honestly, John hitting rock bottom was one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever witnessed. It's soul-crushingly painful. It's an absolute loss. Because in this one moment, it's as if John has learned absolutely nothing since he first arrived. The only place to go from here is up, right? And that's where the theory comes in. You see, I wasn't completely honest when I told you everything I just said. This isn't a typical path for some character in a story. No, this exact path has a very particular name. It's called the hero's journey. So here's my analysis of John and what I believe will be his destiny. Compared to everyone else in the show, John is the most similar to the average person, at least as far as the world of us, the viewers, are concerned. Unlike a lot of other students, John has little in terms of natural skill, training, or experience dealing with Grimm. However, this is exactly the sort of simplicity that makes him fun to watch as a character. He grows noticeably more and more with every volume. Think of it this way. The guy who got taken out by a tree branch in one of the first episodes became the man who was trusted to stand guard while the Fall Maiden's powers were transferred. Not to mention, John made it to the vital tournament. Now, as Nora is quick to point out, he is the weakest link on the team.
We've got a world-renowned fighter on our team. What's basically a ninja. I can bench 5 of me. John!
Are you gonna take that?
She's not wrong.
But to have made it in at all is a sign that he has gotten a lot stronger. This again is part of the hero's journey. The hero in any story is frequently the underdog, the guy no one thinks has the ability to win against the odds, until they do. In John's case, he lied his way into Beacon, following only his dream to be like his ancestors, and now he stands a very real chance of making that happen. Along the way, he also falls for Pyrrha, an incredible warrior. He himself even expresses how impossible it seems for someone like him to end up with someone like her.
But that's... you're Pyrrha Nikos. How could nobody ask you?
But, as Pyrrha put it, there were pretty good reasons why she liked him, and I think it kind of sums up what it is about John that makes him a great character.
That's what I like about you. When we met, you didn't even know my name. You treated me just like anyone else. And thanks to you, I've made friendships that will last a lifetime. I guess you're the kind of guy I wish I was here with. Someone who just saw me for me.
So that's John up to this point. a happy, somewhat silly character trying to defend the people he cares for, including his friends. But in Volume 3, he is absolutely destroyed.
Don't worry about me! Please, you have to save Pyrrha.
We will. Are you okay?
Please.
We also see a different side of him when he is seen later, as he leaves with Ruby and what remains of Team Juniper. This part of John doesn't seem sad or angry, he just seems indifferent. And this leads me to my speculations of what John will be like in Volume 4. We didn't see much of him in the trailer, so it's hard to get a good read of exactly how he would be in terms of attitude. However, based on the events, I can make a pretty safe guess. First of all, let's take a look at one of the last scenes from the fight for Beacon. You know, the one where John gets thrown out? What seems significant here is where he ends up and the situation he finds himself in. From this position, all he can do is call Ruby and hope for the best. This makes him effectively useless. What makes this impactful is that this is exactly what he wanted to avoid from Volume 1. He wanted to be able to help and become useful. This means in this one moment, he is effectively right back where he started all that time ago. Next up, there is the unfortunate but true event that takes place atop the tower. The death of his mentor, the death of his love, Pyrrha. While he may not have seen her death personally, it seems pretty likely that he's figured out she died by now, and he most likely knows that Cinder was the one responsible. This leads me to believe he would be suffering from depression, and he probably feels somewhat disconnected from reality. So what's John going to be like in Volume 4? Well, after everything I've said, I believe we're going to find John in a state of depression as mentioned, but with a fair commitment to Team Ranger. Speaking of Team Ranger, you may recall from my analysis of Ruby that I don't think John would be up for leading Team Ranger despite being the captain of Team Juniper. I believe this because John seemed very impacted by the conversation he had with Ruby in Volume 1 about being a leader.
Nope.
Nope. You're a leader now, Jaune. You're not allowed to be a failure.
But what if I'm a failure at being a leader?
Nope.
You know, you're not the easiest person to talk to about this kind of stuff.
Nope.
After everything that happened, he may feel like he's failed in his role. As a result, he may insist that someone else should be captain. And since we already determined Ruby is most likely not the leader, I believe the leader, at least for the time being, would be Ren. He might be the only one up for the task, since they can make a fair guess that Nora would follow him rather than lead, and that John and Ruby would also opt to follow instead of lead. Back to John. I believe that Volume 4 will take John on a journey to regain his confidence, to recover from the loss of Pyrrha, and to become stronger than he's ever been. He may even discover a semblance along the way, which I personally think will be some sort of barrier, or possibly an enhancement to his weapon through aura, but either way, I'm sure it will be something amazing. But the question remains, why did I bring up the hero's journey at all? Simple. Like I've said, John fits the path of the hero's journey pretty well, and in a lot of ways he could be mistaken for the hero if he had more screen time. In fact, John has had roughly 50 minutes of screen time, the most of any character that isn't a part of Team Ruby. And I didn't finish listing the parts of the hero's journey. The next step in the journey goes like this. The hero rises up from loss and defeats the villain. Now, who would be John's villain?
This is not a tragedy.
Our kingdoms are at the brink of war. Yet we, the citizens, are left in the dark. So I ask you, when the first shots are fired,
Who do you think you can trust?
You guessed it, I'm predicting John will be the one to defeat Cinder. There's a lot going for him, and I personally think he can do it. There's only one problem, and that's that it kind of messes with... Anyway, that's my theory on John. He isn't just a side character, he's the second hero of the show, right beside Ruby herself. Only time will tell if I'm right, but for now, tell me in the comments what you think about this. Is John shaping up to be a real hero, or is all of this just coincidence? This has been BioSnow, and until next time, run wild, my friends. See ya!